So I was thinking about how do you make good creative? And so I made this little process. There are a lot of ways to think about this, but I think one of the best ways is just to say, um, how do you make good creative? You're a small, mid-sized company, let's say, and you just want to know how to make good creative. And so, first, I think that you need to do is you need to figure out why we want to make good creative. Why does this matter so much? So, a lot of times we think, well, the media buy, that's where the that's why an ad works because of the media you buy. But I don't think that's true. And I think that there's a lot you can do to create a good message. It's the message, right? It's the medium and the message. It's both. But if you ignore how to make good creative, then you're not, no matter how much money you spend, everybody everybody picks up on the fact that, oh, this is a boring ad and I don't want to read it. They can see that a mile away. And so, like when I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I see an ad from like a big company, I'm just like, yeah, they're just bragging about themselves, or they're going to say something really irrelevant to me, because if they're a big company and they're saying it, I already know it, probably, right? I don't get a lot of surprises from big companies in their ads. They're not useful to me. They're not interesting. Same thing with small companies that just want to talk about their how long they've been in business, or um, you know, just the cliche, marketing sounding messaging. So how do you cut through that? How do you really make some good creative? Well, first thing you have to do, I think, is you have to think about positioning. Because look, um, if nobody knows, if nobody knows why, if nobody at your company, let's say you're a marketing director or something, if nobody at your company really understands the difference between you and other people, if they can't see right in front of them, here's what we do well, and here's what everybody else kind of sucks at, and here's the positions they're leaving open. You use a position analysis to understand that. You understand what do you understand? Well, you use what the world sees, right? Their website, their social media, and then you say, okay, well, what does it look like their brand is like? What does it look like their style, their expressing is? They're creative. How good are they at creative? Are they technically good at it, or do they suck at it? There are a lot of best practices that professionalize creative and really separates the amateurs from the professionals. And then you get to understand the strategy and positioning. This is huge. What strategy does it look like they're using? Who does it look like they're going after? And what position do they occupy in the market? And so you're getting all these things from a positioning analysis. This is one of my favorite things to do, is a positioning analysis, because to me it's just easy, it's eye-opening. It makes a stark contrast between you and your competition. And so also helps you learn from them, by the way. It helps you understand the things you should be doing that you're not doing, maybe, that they're doing well. Grab some ideas from them. But it also helps you know, how do I not waste money going head to head with somebody who is already good at, some of these things. Great. Okay, so what do you do next? What do you do after the position analysis? Well, you see, hey, there's a real lack in the market. There's a real lack in our ability to execute, and the ability of all our competition to execute. So what do you do next? Well, you look, what's the solution? The solution is better writing and design. So, but what's the way to get better writing and design? And here's where I'm going to tell you technically how to do that in a linear fashion. So a non-linear fashion would be, oh, get better at writing and design. Here's a line, and then here's a non-line. Writing, design, right? We want to do a line, and that line is going to go through, oops, waited too long, writing. All right, so how do you do writing? How do you do writing better? Well, you focus on, how do you do, well, yeah, that's the answer. Focus on writing. How do you do it? Well, it requires two things. First of all, you have to have a writer who's good. That's something I can't tell you how to do in this short video, but you definitely need a writer who's good and who can come up with some ideas, who has some process, right? They're not just an amateur who has instincts. They have instincts and they have process. You also need another thing, and this is something you can do. It's called the creative brief. And what it does is it answers, what is it we're selling? Who's it for? And why does it matter? And so now, if you have that written down, you've given the copywriter something to work with. A good writer will take a clear, good creative brief and turn it into headlines. Before we get there, let's look at what goes into a creative brief. Well, you have your strategist who basically goes out and says, okay, who's our persona? Who are we talking to? You might even talk to the client about that. Or, as Resound, we would talk to the client about that. You need brand book goes into that. And so the brand book can help you understand how do we express ourselves as our brand. And then, and so the strategist will ask questions like, all right, who's the audience? Why do they care so much? They'll figure out the audience member, why do they care about what we're providing? What makes their life change because of this? And who are they? What kinds of communication do they want? When are we communicating with them? Things like that. But generally it comes down to what is it, who's it for, and why does it matter? And as long as these things are interesting, now you have the basis for writing headlines. And a good writer, don't make the mistake of thinking a good writer wants a big area to work in and they don't want any constraints. No, they want constraints because constraints take you deeper. If you don't have constraints, it's like, come over here for a second. It's like having all this space to work with and you never, it's like, let's say you're trying to dig a well. That's what it is. Creatives are trying to dig a well. Writers are trying to dig a well. But if you have your ground is right here, right? And the water's down here, down here, but you can never decide where to dig. So you dig like this, like this, like this, and you never get down far enough because you just don't know, you don't have any confidence where you need to dig. But a good creative brief is a little different. A good creative brief says, okay, here's all the ground, but the well is like right in this area here. So I want you to poke holes down in this area until you find that well. And when you find that well, now you have this beautiful, I don't know, how do you get water out of a well? Windmill? Anyway, now you're getting water, right? Or you're getting oil or whatever you're looking for. So, and the headlines and concepts are what come out of that. These great headlines and concepts are that, you're digging deep, right? Because you don't have to waste all your energy digging in all these other places. You're digging deep right here. And so you're going to get some really interesting ideas because the creative brief told you where to dig. And that's why the creative brief is so important. That's why you can't just have a creative brief that's like, oh, I don't know, who is it? We're going after all business owners. All right, well, or what is it? It's accounting. Who are you going after? All business owners. Why do they like you? Because we do their taxes right, and we do it, their taxes without making mistakes. It's like, well, everybody should do that. You're way too broad. So unless you have a lot of money, then you need to figure out how to focus this more. Because you don't have a ton of money, like a really, really big, in this case, accounting firm, then you don't have the money to dig everywhere, to go deep everywhere, right? You have the money to go deep in one place, right? And that's what you want to do. And you want to go after the people at the bottom of that, the business owners at the bottom of this well right here. All right. So once you have your headlines and concepts, this is why I say we need to start with the writer, because when you have your headlines and concepts, copy. All right, I'm going to say something real quick. Copy is a cheap way to cut through the noise. Okay, so think about this for a second. think about how much money it costs to develop a creative idea, right? Like a visual creative idea. Think how much it costs to create a visual metaphor. So I remember this one. It was for the French Open that we saw in school, in ad school, and it had a tennis racket, right? And the tennis racket was upside down, and they made it look like the Eiffel Tower. So the tennis racket, but they made it look like the Eiffel Tower, and it was the French Open, right? French Open, right? So that was the ad, and it's really cool and everything, and it's clever. Does it, and it probably gets the job done. But a lot of times what we're talking about is we're making an argument. We're trying to help people understand something. I wonder how long it took for them to develop that French Open visual. That's what's called a visual metaphor, right? When you have you're creating a symbol, it's visual to get a point across. It takes a lot of work to get to create a visual metaphor. It takes a lot longer to write a headline than it does to actually draw a thumbnail and try to come up with some of these ideas, right? Actually, thumbnails are a pretty quick way to do things visually. But it takes a lot more production and a lot more work and a lot more money, and you have to find designers who are very good at design. Copy, on the other hand, is very easy to work with. You can write a lot of headlines. You can write 100 headlines, and most copywriters should be writing 100 headlines for any campaign that you're going to spend money on. But then you take that and then you just use design best practices to find an image. I mean, if you're, the other thing is, if you're designing for a magazine, you might have some layout. If you're designing a one sheet, you might have someone lay it out for you, and that person is often a designer. That's the visual headline, subhead, body copy, and logo, right? So that's kind of a classic format. It's called the Ogilvy format, by the way. I think it's the visual headline, subhead, body copy, logo. And so that's a Ogilvy format. But anyway, it's an ad format, and all you need is a designer to follow basic best practices in design, making sure that stuff isn't crammed up against other things. But that's really easy to hire for. And that's the thing, is basic design and layouts are cheap and easy to hire, right? And so you don't need to spend a bunch of money on those people. You spend money on the copywriter. You get good headlines and concepts, and you let the copy, which is the substance, lead everything, right? So you let the copy lead everything. A lot of times you'll have an image with copy in it. So you'll actually have an image. This is what we do a lot at Resound, where the copy is in the image, and then there's a background image back here, right? That kind of it's a nice image, but this is actually the headline. Headline goes right there in the image, but still that's just copywriting, right? Let's say the headline was right here. That's still just copywriting. The designer lays it out, lays out the copy on the image, and now your headline's here, your body copy is here, and now you have a good ad that is based on copy. It's based on a good headline that gets the point across. Okay, so that's how you do it. That is how you do it. That is how you get good creative. Now, there are some other questions about, there are other parts of a campaign. There's the media plan. And so you have a media planner who plans that out, and they're probably someone who's going to they're going to suggest a media, some people call it a mix, which is like, what are we creating? What are we making? And then you have a schedule, and then you have a budget for the media spend, right? Not for the ad work, not for the work getting done. But you have the mix, schedule, and then you have the budget. And now from the mix and the schedule, Now the creatives know exactly how to execute those things. So we know, oh, how many LinkedIn ads are we going to run? Oh, hey, what's our homepage look like, or a landing page look like for this campaign, right? Do we have a landing page for it that focuses on that thing that we're trying to move, that we're trying to sell? It focuses on that campaign, that promise. I mean, your brand's homepage may be very different. You may have a bunch of pages coming off the homepage, but then one of them is like something really specific that's hyper relevant to that audience that corresponds to this campaign. And so, everything goes to the campaign, all the social, all the blog might even, go to that campaign. And then any paid ads, they all go to that page, and that's the conversion page. And there's a really simple way to do it, just as an example. But so you have the media, and then what else do you have? Let me think. Oh yeah, you have to make your team. So building your team is kind of that's something we can help with at Resound. Building your team, hiring talent, things like that. We do that all the time. And so if you're trying to do this, one of the things, don't do it alone unless you want to, I guess. But you can keep watching these videos. But why, who does this matter to? Well, I think it matters to so writers, because writers are going to want to understand, a lot of young writers are like, well, I'm not successful. I don't know why. And it's like, well, do they give you a creative brief? Because a lot of times, the strategist may be a marketing director. It may be a marketing assistant, basically just saying, hey, copywriter, we have work for you to do. And the writer's like, well, what is it? We're selling this. We're selling this product. And the writer's like, oh, can you tell me more? And they're like, yeah, the product is good. It does this or whatever. And the writer doesn't come away with an understanding of really what we're selling. What we're selling is it's relevant to the audience, who it's for, like a tight version of who it's for, and then why does it matter to them? So the writer comes out of it like they don't know why they're failing. And you don't really want that, A good writer is worth his or her weight in gold, and you want to make sure that you support them. Strategists should care about it because it makes you a professional. Because if you're a marketing director or someone at that level and you don't know how to delegate writing, that's a huge opportunity for you, because it's a really basic, being able to understand and write a brief, and at least understand how it works and be able to question the brief. Let's say you have someone else write your brief. You want to be able to question it. Creative directors want to know, hey, I have a writer who's working for me, and I have a strategist, and I don't know where the problem is. I'm not getting good creative. Why am I not getting good creative? Well, the creative director can look and see if there's a good creative brief. And if there's not a good creative brief, that is what you try to fix first. So you go talk to the strategist because you're like, hey, I need you to fix the creative brief, because if you do that, then I can see if the writer is the problem. But until the creative brief is concise and good and interesting, then then we have to assume the problem's in the brief. And then we can work on getting a new writer. But you don't want to burn a writer because you have a bad brief. You don't want to go through writers that way. Okay, and then, as far as owners too, partners, owners of these businesses, that you're the one, you're the one whose profit, your retirement, your kids' college fund depends on all this. And so keep in mind that media is important. Getting the message out is important. Message is extremely important, because I can tell you right now, in so many industries, your competition is doing a crappy job, and it's very easy to win in this area. And so this is a huge opportunity. So partners and owners, you should know it's going to be really easy for you to win if you just pay attention to some of these things. And if you hire people who can handle this kind of work and who can understand how to make it work for you. All right, that's it. That's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope this was helpful. And I hope that it equips people